Huh. So, Episode 1 Racer just got gogged, and you know me, an old Star Wars game gets gogged, that's like instant content for me right there. I have to make a video about it. It's my obligation, it's my mission. And you know, Episode 1 Racer is not like TIE Fighter or Rogue Squadron, because it's not a game that I remember from my childhood. Which is strange, because as a kid, I totally dug Phantom Menace. I was all in, I didn't know any better. I mean, the movie does have merit today compared to the rest of the series, but let's be real, it's not a very good movie. Okay, I'm getting off topic. We're supposed to talk about Episode 1 Racer here. Yeah, okay. So, as a 6-year-old Phantom Menace fan, Episode 1 Racer is the kind of game that I could totally see myself getting sucked into. It's a legitimately well-designed game. The pod racers are fun to control, the tracks are interesting, and it does a good job of sucking you into this feedback loop of winning races to earn money, spending that money on pod racer parts to improve your performance, which helps you win races, and so on and so forth. It sells the feeling of being a pro pod racer in the same way that TIE Fighter sells the feeling of being an Imperial Enforcer. I hate to put it in such a cliched way, but it really does take the best scene from the Phantom Menace, expand on it, and immerse you into it. And I do love the little world-building touches that go into each of the tracks, even if it is a little hokey at times. It dedicates itself to the idea of, hey, what if Anakin went further? What if he went pro? What would the rest of the circuit entail? What would the tracks look like? Hey, what if Anakin went further? What if he just decided to keep pod racing after his first victory over Sebulba? What if the Chosen One that would bring balance to the Force just decided he wanted to be a pro racer for the rest of his life? What if he didn't go on to become a powerful Jedi? Think of how many people would have been spared. Younglings, Raiders, Jedi, Separatists, and not just the men, but the women and the children too. Maybe the Jedi Council would have been able to send a proper spy to Palpatine. Maybe they could have thwarted him before he set his plan in motion. Anakin wouldn't even have to not like sand anymore. After all, that's where his career would have began. It's a pretty nice thought, isn't it? Anakin becomes a much less insufferable character in this alternate timeline, and so do his descendants. But it's just that. An alternate timeline. And sometimes it's time to let those things die. Because that's not the way things went. George Lucas unleashed his prequels to the world, and it doesn't matter how much we speculate on how they could have been different or how we could have written them better, because they're here. They happened. They've already had their impact on society's consciousness. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. We wouldn't be having those fascinating discussions if the prequels weren't total garbage. We wouldn't have Palpatine memes or enjoyably corny dialogue to laugh at. We wouldn't have Republic Commando or Knights of the Old Republic or its really insanely subversive sequel. I mean, what would The Last Jedi have looked like without the prequels? I don't think it would have existed. It seems almost especially built as a critique of the Star Wars movies that came before it. Nearly every part of it is subversive of what the audience expects from a Star Wars movie. The hero's grand plan to recruit a lovable codebreaker rogue turns out to be just a fart in the wind. Rey is only just barely able to convince Luke to join the Resistance, and even then, he technically doesn't even show up. And he gets himself killed anyway. Hell, Luke himself is sharply critical of his family's legacy, and he should be. Both his father and his nephew have been complicit in mass murders and torture. And his opinions of the Jedi aren't any better, and you don't really need to dig very far into Star Wars lore to know why. How would Luke's character change if his father hadn't been a horrible galactic conqueror? How would his character have changed if his father were instead a pod racing champion? Luke himself might have been better off as the son of a famous pod racer rather than someone burdened with the responsibility of his religion's and family's horrifying actions. But that's boring. We all know the reason that Anakin became an insufferable teen and galactic menace to be. We know the reason that Luke suffers from anxiety over his family's actions. It's because it makes for damn good cinema. And that's what The Last Jedi is. It's a tough movie to digest, yes, but the insight it offers into its own franchise is nuanced and interesting. It wouldn't be that if we didn't have the prequel trilogy before it. Because rather than letting the past die, The Last Jedi learns from it and builds upon it. After all,
pass on what you have learned. Strength, mastery, but weakness, folly, failure also. Yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher failure is. Luke, we are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.
So yeah, Episode 1 Racer is pretty groovy. 7 out of 10.